We're doing two NBA player props here on PrizePicks for Wednesday, December 6th. Before I get started, there is a link in the description below. You can hop into our premium Discord at $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. So I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We also have other super premium cappers in there as well. They post all of their plays, research, analysis, super positive community in there, you guys. Everyone just trying to help each other win. And yeah, we've been profiting a ton in there. So go ahead and check out the link in the description. In my opinion, one of the cheaper premium Discords that exists, honestly. $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day, you guys. Link in the description below for that. I also want to mention I'm not a gambling expert and this is not financial advice. These are simply plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully give you guys some insight and analysis to then make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get right into it. Two NBA player props for Wednesday, December 6th. We have a massive slate today. Obviously, a lot of these teams will be very well rested. So hopefully we get some good, close, exciting types of matchups here. Again, I reiterate, close competitive games here. There are some games with some insane spreads here. Golden State's 12.5 point favorites here against Portland. We got Utah, 10-point favorites against Dallas. Yeah, just a bunch of interesting matchups in my opinion here. Got two plays that I'm targeting though. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right after it. So the first play is going to be, both these plays are actually going to be fantasy score. The first one is going to be Mikal Bridges over 38.5 fantasy score here against the Atlanta Hawks. Mikal has been playing really well as of late. I think kind of just as the season has gone on, no Ben Simmons has kind of established himself as, I mean, not that he didn't already establish himself, but has kind of established himself as the alpha best player on this team. He is over this line in 2 of his last 2 and over in 3 of his last 5 games. But it's really, for me, the matchup here for Mikal Bridges. We look at this game. This has the highest over-under on the slate, which is obviously benefiting us and helping us with fantasy score lines. 243 over-under here. Again, no Ben Simmons, no Lonnie Walker, and without question, Mikal Bridges is going to play the most minutes on this team. We look over on Outlier. Again, there's a link in the description. You get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. This is a sports betting tool that I do use every single day. Its odds for over 34.5 PRA here are minus 160, minus 145 on these users. It's actually bumped up to 35 on PrizePicks here. So essentially, we're saying heavy odds on the over of at least 35 PRA. That is only essentially a 3.5 point discrepancy between PRA and fantasy score line. And we know the type of defensive presence that Mikal Bridges is, which is why I really like this fantasy score line here. Now, we look at Mikal Bridges, his last matchups versus Atlanta Hawks. 59 PRA a few weeks ago, literally like less than 13 days ago or so. And then 49 PRA here against Atlanta last season, 32 PRA again last season at Atlanta as well. We look at his fantasy score game log this season. He had his best game of the season against Atlanta. 68 fantasy points, 44 minutes, 44, 10, 4, and 2. Sorry, 45, 10, 4, and 2. Scored 45 points here. And is coming off a game where he just had 42 points against Orlando. So he's kind of locked into that mode here, scoring-wise. But we take a look at Mikal Bridges, his fantasy score game log versus the Hawks since he's been with the Brooklyn Nets dating back to last season. 46, 51, and 68 fantasy points in those 3 games against Atlanta. He absolutely dominates Atlanta, without question, probably his best single matchup as far as opposing teams go, especially given the type of style that he plays. Atlanta loves to blitz the ball handlers, and Mikal Bridges is not the ball handler on this team, which gives him a lot of single coverage, able to really just score the ball pretty easily. We look at Mikal Bridges, or we look at specifically the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, they allow the third most fantasy points to the small forward position. 44.6 fantasy points to the small forward position, which again, Mikal Bridges is without question a small forward. He's not like a hybrid. He's not a shooting guard. He is a small forward in this offense. We look at other small forwards fantasy score game log this season versus the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, Mikal Bridges had the best game at 68. Not expecting him to play 44 minutes tonight, but literally we need around 30 points less than what he had, fantasy points less than what he had in this game against Atlanta. Asar Thomas had 51, Jason Tatum's 50, Keldon Johnson 40.7, Denny Avdija 40.5, Max Strus 37.1, Jaylen Brown 34.9, Haywood Highsmith 33.7. So you can see kind of the similarity in players that Mikal Bridges is and how effective those types of players have been against the Atlanta Hawks this season. Just overall, Mikal Bridges in an absolute great spot here. He does average a little bit more points on the road than he does away, and he is also averaging on the season 1.16 fantasy points per minute. Projecting Mikal Bridges for around 34 to 36 minutes in this game. Obviously, a massive over/under. Not expecting a ton of defense in this one. And again, we've been kind of targeting forwards and wings versus the Hawks, and at the same time, we've been targeting forwards and wings versus the Brooklyn Nets. So I'm expecting a ton of scoring in this one. Just love Mikal Bridges in this spot. Obviously, heavily favored here. Minus 160 on DraftKings to go over 34.5 PRA. 38.5 fantasy is definitely the wave here, definitely the move considering his defensive capabilities. You can see all the games here with multiple stocks. And for a player, he doesn't really turn the ball over, which I think helps fantasy score lines as well. So Mikal Bridges over 38.5 fantasy scores. The first play. The second play here is going to be another fantasy score. It's going to be Jaylen Green. This might be the first time I think we're taking Jaylen Green this season. I know we took him a few times last season, but I like his over 30 fantasy score here against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, if you know Jaylen Green, you know how he plays. He plays horrible on the road and very, very good at home, right? He is a home demon. Absolute just a menace at home, in my opinion. We look at his fantasy score game log this season, right? And we break this down to his highest scoring games. I mean, he's gone under this. He's had under 29. He's only gone under 29.1 fantasy one time this season at home. Every other time this season at home, he's gone over this line. You can see the at versus home here, right? So we take a look at his at home game log this season. Fantasy score game log this season at home, right? He's gone under this line twice, but essentially barely missed when he scored 9 points, 9, 8, and 5 in one. Shot 1 for 13, still finished with 29.1 fantasy points at home versus Denver. And then again, he's only gone under this line one time at home this season versus Sac back on November 4th, so over a month ago. We look at his last couple games at home, last 2 games at home, really 44.4 fantasy against the Memphis Grizzlies and 40 fantasy here against the Denver Nuggets. And I do think this is a sneaky good matchup here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. One, we just look at the splits for Jaylen Green, like 15.6 points per game on the road compared to 22 points per game at home. He literally averages almost 7 more points per game at home than he does away. It's just kind of been the Achilles heel essentially for his career so far, just not being able to perform that well at home versus away, just the consistency, right? But we look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, okay? And this is just to opponent guards, right? To guards. They allow the third most field goal attempts to guards within 5 feet, right? They allow the most field goal attempts from 15 to 19 feet to guards, and then they also allow the most field goal attempts from 20 to 24 feet to guards. So let's just look at Jaylen Green here. 20 to 24 feet on the Houston Rockets. Where is it? 20 to 24 feet, Jaylen Green takes the most field goal attempts. 15 to 19 feet, Jaylen Green takes the most field goal attempts, right? It matches up extremely well here. Most field goal attempts from those spots, most field goal attempts from those spots. Jaylen Green, the most field goal attempts on the team. We look at also less than 5 feet. Jaylen Green, the second most on the team, right? And OKC allowing the third most in the NBA to guards, you guys. Guards, not bigs, not forwards, guards in the NBA, okay? It's a great spot for Jaylen Green at home. I just think with the pace-up matchup, he's over at least one blocker steal, minus 214, over 27.5 PRAs, minus 120. Not the craziest odds, minus 130, over 24.5 PR here. So we do get some decent odds as far as favoring his fantasy score line here. But we just look, going back to last season, right? Going back to last season, Jaylen Green's fantasy score game log at home. I mean, it's not even going to cover this full thing, but I mean, look at the fantasy score totals when he plays at home, right? This is like going to only cover like 25 games, like, or actually we can see more, right? I mean, he had at least 29.5 fantasy in so many games last season at home. He's a home demon. Again, 29 plus fantasy points in almost every single game this season at home. Pace up matchup as well. Yeah, I just like the spot for him. Jaylen Green over 30 fantasy. Mikal Bridges over 38.5 fantasy score. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about these two plays here. Drop a like on this video. Check out all the links in the description below. And as always, let's cash.